I've had it. I've got a bone to pick. The misperception of UConn football, the fans, the stadium, the facilities, the players that have come through here, the disrespect needs to stop. And I'm here this entire show to set the record straight on this Thursday night edition of Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday night. Welcome back to another episode of Locked On UConn. I am your host, Matt Schonvisky. On today's show, it's 100% football, correcting the incorrect narrative that is out there about the history of this program at the top level of college football. We're going to start with the state-of-the-art facilities that UConn has, because anytime UConn is currently mentioned now to join a power league, one that's like the Big 12 or the ACC, there's always a but. UConn needs to invest in facilities and stadiums and upgrades. Well, they don't know what they're talking about. So we're going to present out and give you a tour of everything we've got going on here. Final segment, the facilities on campus. We'll take you through it all, and we'll let some national prognosticators talk about the facilities and how they compare nationally. Middle of today's show, the UConn football fan base. I need to touch on this as well because we get a bad rap. There's a misunderstanding of the fan base that resides here in Connecticut. It's a pro-style fan base, which means you give us top level of competition, it's going to be insane. We're going to show you examples. We're going to give you and let you live the atmosphere of what this program used to have. And what, if you give a power conference, this football program, and give a power schedule to this UConn football fan base, it's going to be electric. But first, we're diving in on Rentschler Field, the fake narrative of what this stadium is. The location, is it an issue? I don't think so. Those that live in Connecticut don't think so. Those externally believe so, but we'll talk all about it. But before we dive in, I just want to remind anybody watching, I'm not just somebody behind a microphone. This is me, 2011. I'm here on the left, running out of the tunnel with the football program. I've been inside the football program. I've been part of the support staff of the UConn football program in the past. I've seen it firsthand, running out that tunnel, what that environment's like, being on field level, not just from a media perspective, but inside the program as well. I say that because I want to give you guys and any other people that are watching that perspective. This isn't just somebody on a podcast talking. This is somebody that lived it, that was there, that saw it firsthand. And that's what we are going to start with, is that stadium. Rentschler Field opened in 2003, very first game. You would think as a football program upgrades, it's going to be a slow transition, right? Well, this football program opened up, and here it is. Here's what it looked like. Day one. This is Rentschler Field for the opener against Indiana. Very first game. Not a seat to be had because it was completely sold out. And UConn rolled over Indiana in that opener. Terry Colley ran all over the Hoosiers. Dan Orlovsky threw all over the Hoosiers. And I bring that up first because, number one, it's a very nice stadium. We're going to go through a lot of other pictures. We're going to go through a lot of other videos. We're going to let Sean McDonough of all, because back when the Big East was a power conference, Sean McDonough was the main voice of the Big East Conference. And he took in UConn game after UConn game after UConn game, the Thursday nights, the Friday nights, even the Wednesday nights. He was on the call. He saw firsthand exactly what UConn football was all about. And I'm going to let him talk about exactly what he saw firsthand as he called the games. And we'll play some clips as we go. But Rentschler Field, there's two things to be corrected. Number one, you don't need a new stadium. Rentschler Field, like I just said, was opened in 2003. Construction completed 2002, early 2003. There are only 22 stadiums that are younger than Rentschler Field. 22. And of the 22 that have been built since, only 6 have a higher capacity than the 40,000-seat Rentschler Field. Only 6. And it's not just G5 schools building stadiums. We're talking the likes of Northwestern of the Big Ten, Vanderbilt of the SEC. Even Kansas recently they're redoing their entire stadium. They went from 50,000, and now it's going to be down to 41,000. But I don't see Kansas getting hit for the size of their stadium. I don't see Kansas not being a candidate for other conferences because they sit in a stadium of 40,000. Only UConn. Only UConn. And this stadium is beautiful. Here's a view. UConn Pittsburgh. More pictures. UConn Pittsburgh. The first ever Big East game. We're going to talk about this because we want to talk about the environment a little more. But this stadium, man, oh man. Let's let Sean McDonough talk about the stadium.
The ascension of UConn football to Division 1A has been a huge hit in the Nutmeg State. Sellout crowds have become the norm at beautiful new Rentschler Field. And another full house will be on hand tonight for the first ever meeting on the gridiron between the Pittsburgh Panthers and the Connecticut Huskies tonight on
Beautiful new Rentschler Field. You think Sean McDonough is just blowing smoke? Back in 2004? The first ever Big East game? No. Because the stadium looks the part. It looks the part. UConn football gets a bad rap for what's transpired since Randy Edsall left. And Paul Pasqualoni, and then Bob Diaco, and then Randy Edsall again. Then Jim Mora righted the ship. Just because there was a significant amount of losing seasons does not mean the infrastructure is not here at UConn. It is. It is. Let's just take a quick look at what Rentschler Field is all about.
I think that this field and this stadium is better than what people on a national perspective would expect it to be. We got some elevators down below, so we should be able to get in this big old press box next. Press level up top. Really good view of the field right here. Here's the control room. It's kind of cool. It's behind glass. You can actually peek into here. I usually like that. And then just for a little bit of history, this stadium got built in 2002, 2003, the first season. This is what UConn football looks like on campus. Pretty big upgrade from what I can see. One floor below that, you have the club section. Seating right here goes about 6 rows deep below glass. Best view you're gonna get from the sideline. And then right here, got your cocktail tables, got your place to eat, got your place.
The narrative out there is UConn's football stadium is not good enough for the Big 12. Not good enough for the Big 12. Here's the locker room. Here's what your locker room on game day looks like for UConn.
This is our locker room. Just got redone this summer. Over here we have the training room. The training room just got redone about 2 years ago. We got the ice baths. We got the benches. All the benches are brand new.
So this is just a game day locker room,
Just
right?
game day locker room.
Yeah, like for specifically a game day locker room, I would say this is one of the best, if not the best game day locker room I've seen. Usually the game day locker rooms are very nuts and bolts. And this feels like an in facility.
One of the nicest he's seen. And that's the video that I just showed is from somebody that is touring every college campus, every college football stadium there is. One of the nicest he's seen resides here at Rentschler Field. The location, I feel like that's a big issue too for these Big 12 conference people that don't understand the state of Connecticut. When Jason Candle was introduced as new head coach, he was even getting questions from local media who cover UConn sports, asking him how big a detriment is it that this football stadium is off campus. Does Dan Hurley or Gino Auriemma get the same question when the two best basketball programs in the country in their respective sports play 50% of their games off campus at a further location than Rentschler Field? The answer is no. The answer is no, because it doesn't matter. In the state of Connecticut, the stadium was built in the perfect location to drive fans to the stadium. Access to highways, great access to airport, access to hotels for opposing teams to come in downtown Hartford. The stadium location is a perfect setup for what UConn sports is all about, because UConn has historically played games off campus in the state of Connecticut. We just said UConn men's basketball, UConn women's basketball, 50% of their games. Does anybody talk about that nationally? No, nobody does. Because, again, it does not matter that half the basketball games are played in Hartford. Only for UConn football. Only for UConn football. Because the narrative out there is incorrect. The fans love the location. And the tailgating at Rentschler Field is pristine. It's pristine. It's some of the best tailgating in college football, with the open locations and the lots that run down the runway still. So the narrative around Rentschler Field and what Rentschler Field is and what Rentschler Field looks like and what Rentschler Field is all about, it's just wrong. It's just wrong. And so has the performance of the team.
I feel like it's been kind of forgotten about how good UConn was in the late 2000s. Got a Fiesta Bowl up there in 2011, 2 Big East titles back when the Big East was a power conference.
All right, that's enough about the UConn football stadium. As we go forward on today's show, we're going to be talking about the fan base. We're going to show you examples of just how electric this fan base has been in the past and what this fan base can be again. And we'll talk all about it as we continue here on Locked On UConn. Tonight's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all your subscriptions in one spot and can help cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going, and you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. Back in on this Thursday night edition of Locked On UConn. Just a reminder, Locked On UConn is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world. Please hit the like and subscribe button and share with your friends and family if you like the content that we are bringing each and every single day. UConn football fan base. That's the second topic on today's show, all about changing the narrative of what this UConn football program has been and what it can be in a power conference. The UConn football fan base, we've talked a lot about it on this show. It's a professional sports type fan base, which means you need to see top level of competition. Top level of competition. That will bring out the fans. When UConn football was rolling and in a power conference, not even rolling, but just joining a power conference, we already showed you what Indiana looked like. This is 2003, full house. This is Pitt in 2004, full house. This is 5 years later in 2009, full house. This 4 years later, 2013, against Michigan, full house. Very next year, new coach again, BYU, full house. The fan base shows up. You play top level of competition, the fan base will be there. The fan base will be there. And even Jim Morris saw that. Even despite only playing one power conference team a year at home, Jim Morris also saw it. He saw it against NC State. He saw it against Wake Forest. He saw it last year against Duke. And it's just what would transpire each and every single game if UConn had a slate of power conference opponents. UConn used to sell out every single game. Every single game.
Between the campus in downtown Hartford, with plenty of students here tonight. Furman was tackled by Tyler King. This is very much a pro atmosphere, if you will. Connecticut, a well-populated state. We're just outside downtown Hartford. Really, there are no pro teams here. There's minor league sports, but Connecticut is it in this state, and they have really taken to the football program as they have the men's and women's basketball that have won national championships in recent years.
You see the environment. You see what it looks like. You can see exactly how UConn cares about their teams. What's the type of impact they had? Because they had a significant impact. Let's start with 2004. That game against Pitt. Anybody that was there, anybody that knows about it, it's in UConn football lore. Pitt was backed up in front of the student section. First down. Crowd's going nuts. False start. Second down. False start. Third down. Delay of game. The crowd was electric. I still talk to players that were on that team. And they still to this day talk about the energy in that stadium, the atmosphere in that stadium, the electricity in that stadium that night. And it was recreated over and over and over. It just wasn't a one-off situation because it was the first Big East game against Pitt. That atmosphere happened over and over and over again. Here's a snippet.
Well, those fans are having an effect.
Offense, half the distance to the goal, still second down.
In fact, when Connecticut beat Duke here a few weeks ago, Duke missed a last-second field goal they would have won it, and Randy Edsall credited the crowd in part for the missed field goals and the deafening.
That was the second down play. I was front row that game in the student section. I was a sophomore at the school. And they had, if you remember, if anybody was a student at that time, they had pads all along the front of the stadium, all the way around. And we used to smack as hard as we possibly could to make even more noise, screaming, yelling, the atmosphere, the electricity. And days after, my hand was still hurting. But that type of energy threw Pitt off, threw opponents off each and every single time an opponent came in. Here's another example. This is the third down play where once again the crowd forced another penalty.
Third down and 14. And Coach Harris is looking for a play from his inexperienced offense in their first road game, by far the toughest environment they've faced so far tonight. Falco goes out of the gun. They have quick kicked a couple of times this year. And again, problems with the snap, and this time a delay of game penalty.
Delay game. Number 3 offense. 5-yard penalty, half the distance to the goal.
And that's not a very big distance at this juncture as they keep backing up closer and closer to the goal line.
You know, I took my headset off in the midst of that series right there of things, and you can tell that Falco's asking for the ball. And most teams now, from this point forward, who studied the Connecticut team will know they've got to go silent snap when they come here.
Electric. And that wasn't the only instance. Fast forward 3 or 4 years. USF had just knocked off Auburn to get to number 2 in the rankings. They fell to Rutgers the following week, and then they came into Rentschler Field, still ranked in the top 10. and UConn came out swinging. But USF did fight back. And it came down to goal line stand. And I've got a couple plays here and then the aftermath, just to give you another sense of the electricity in the environment that existed at Rentschler Field and will still exist if UConn is playing the top level of competition. First clip's going to be the third down play right in front of the student section. The environment that night. You see it firsthand. You see it firsthand. Don't tell me UConn doesn't care about football. This fan base cares about everything to do with UConn, including football. That was the third down play. Here's fourth down. Game on the line. Under a minute to go. About 45 seconds left. Matt Grothy's the quarterback at USF. Here's what transpired. Electric. But it didn't stop there. After the game, field rush. You take a look at that and you tell me if the UConn football fan base cares about their football program. That was 2007. Let's fast forward 2 years. Notre Dame Stadium. This isn't even at home. This is on the road, South Bend, Indiana. UConn had just knocked off Notre Dame on the road in overtime. This was Randy Edsall postgame. I want you to listen in the background as Randy Edsall's attention turns to the crowd and hear the environment.
And we know we still got 2 more to go, but I'll tell you what, God bless Jazz and his family and these kids for doing the job that they've done and hung in here and for these great fans.
Randy, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And Tom, it doesn't get much more heartfelt than that.
The swing of emotions, Alex. The reference to Jasper Howard, who tragically was killed earlier this season.
And that's why, everybody, that's why we have the number 6 here. I know this wasn't his jersey because this was that conference. But this number 6 is a reminder of Jasper Howard each and every time I put this recording on. In the concourse, here's what it sounded like at Notre Dame Stadium. UConn football traveling on the road, not just at home. Those type of environments we brought with us to road games. All the way out in South Bend, Indiana. Moral of the story here is you can see exactly what the stadium looked like. We talked about it already. 2003, 2004, 2009, 2013, 2016, and even last year, Duke, field rush. 2015, Houston, field rush. 2010, West Virginia, field rush. Here's what it looked like against Michigan. You telling me this stadium is not ready? This fan base is not ready for top level of competition and to compete in a power conference? The fan base, and ladies and gentlemen, is here. You just give this team and this program and this fan base the opportunity to have a schedule the likes of a Power 4 conference, which is why this schedule this year, you're going to see more environments like this. You're going to see more environments like we saw last season against Duke in the win over the eventual ACC champion. Why? Because UConn fans turn out for the top level of competition regardless. And one thing I missed on the stadium, this is not the first time UConn's been rumored to be in conference realignment, right? Conference expansion. Speaking of expansion, Rentschler Field was built, if required, and if the demand got to a certain point, to be able to be expanded in an offseason. You can see here on the top, the section in blue. That's 10,000 seats could be added in an offseason on a third level opposite side of the press box. The fittings already were built when the stadium was constructed. So all they would have to do is just throw that up there because all the support is already in place underneath. And UConn's talked about this in the past. These are the renderings for that. Additionally, you might close in the end of the stadium where the scoreboard is as part of an expansion. UConn does not need to build an on-campus stadium to support UConn football. You just saw what the atmosphere looked like. You saw what the stadium looks like. UConn's got it all. UConn has it all. And one final thing on the fans. This is from way back in the mid-2010s. We won't look at everything. These were all the rumored candidates for the Big 12 at the time. It just so happens all three of the others you see here on the screen are currently made it into the Big 12. I want you to look at the bottom here, the bottom two, how UConn stacks up. Capacity-wise, these are numbers pulled since back in 2016. Average attendance, 36,645 in a 40,000-seat stadium that comes to 92% capacity. At that time, Cincinnati was only at 81%. Houston was only at 60%. Yet those schools are in. Those schools made it. With less support for their football programs. Less support. The attendance numbers, once again, decreased after UConn stopped playing the top level of competition because this is a pro-style fan base. Call it fair weather, call it whatever you want. There's so many options here when it comes to sports. Fans will care. Fans will show if you're playing the top level of competition. Fans will not show if they have a perception that it's minor leagues. And in this state, the UConn Huskies across all sports are the professional sports franchise in the state. And the fans and the residents of the state come out and support it when they're playing at the top level. One final comment. Robert Griffin III. Don't just listen to me. Don't just trust what you saw in the video. Don't just listen to Sean McDonough. This is Robert Griffin III as he was entering the NFL draft. I'll just read it. The thing that people think is when you go to these big stadiums that they're the toughest stadiums to play at. The toughest places to play are the ones that are jammed with people. tight to the field, sit about 40,000, 45,000. When we played at UConn my freshman year, that was the loudest place I've ever been as a football player. The stands are right next to the field. It was packed. Everyone was yelling. That was probably the coolest place for me to play. The loudest place I've ever been as a football player, Robert Griffin III. Who played in the Big 12? Who played at Baylor? Who saw firsthand what UConn and this stadium and the fan base was all about? Because UConn cares. The fans care. You throw an opponent out there that's top level, the fans will be there. And just watch how the attendance uptick happens this year. Maryland, Syracuse, Bill Belichick in North Carolina. You're going to be close to sold out, if not sold out, for all three of those. As UConn and the Jason Candle era begins later this year. And Jason Candle and your staff, do not waste this opportunity. Because some of those environments and some of those atmospheres that you saw will be recreated here as long as you continue to build on what Jim Moore got this program back to, which is a winner, a competitive program, and one that will go out and beat even champions of Power 4 conferences. As we move forward, we have one final thing to talk about. We're not done. We talked stadium, we talked fan base. Let's talk about facilities. We'll do that as we continue here on Locked On UConn. Back in on this Thursday night edition of Locked On UConn, where we are talking all about UConn football, trying to change the narrative and present exactly what UConn football has been and can be again in a power conference. Finally, we're talking facilities, because every time we hear about UConn, we hear that UConn needs to invest in their facilities. Well, let's pull up an article from Nicole Auerbach, ESPN, from back in 2021. Highlighted section. I'll read it. UConn football. This is all about UConn football. The facilities are in place, including the $57.9 million football facility that UConn built in 2006. Something that, as of 2021, some Power 5 schools, even like Florida State, don't even have. Listen, I've been around to a number of colleges, both when you saw me at the start of this, when I was with the program, also doing media. I talked to scouts. I've had other people reach out to me in terms of what the facilities are like. I've talked to all the coaches that have come here, including Rhett Lashley, who came from Auburn. And he talked about he had no idea that UConn had the facilities that they do, because they are state of the art. Built in 2006, ahead of their time, even. UConn was one of the first football programs in the country to have a fully dedicated football facility and football complex where they have everything they need during the day, as well as a complete indoor 100-yard football field. We'll give you a tour because it deserves its own thing. This video, courtesy of UConn Athletics. UConn needs to invest in facilities. Do they? You just saw them. The answer is no. The answer is the facilities are there, and they continuously upgrade and remodel and redesign. But they have everything you need. They have even more than what you need. To the point where I know men's basketball players, women's basketball players come into the football facility to recover. You saw some of the training center, the recovery pools. UConn has all the facilities they need. In that video, you saw the wall of NFL players. One other narrative out there, the talent that UConn's had. I pulled this back in March of 2016. This is the last thing we're going to talk through. It has to do with amount of players in the NFL. And this is, just a reminder, 2016. What happened? What was UConn? Where was UConn in 2016? They had one bowl game since the Fiesta Bowl. So they had been on a downtick from a performance standpoint on the field, right? Yet, UConn's football facilities, the recruiting that was done and what that allowed, even after the Big East fell apart, was still at a level where UConn was sustaining players in the NFL. I'm going to have a video here, 40 seconds long. It's going to go power conference by power conference. As of 2016, where did UConn stack up against every other power conference school at that time? I think some of the numbers will surprise you, and I'm going to talk over this as well. Here's the ACC. You can see UConn 21, more than BC, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, NC State, Virginia Tech. Big 12, only at that time, Oklahoma and Texas had more than UConn. UConn would have been the tops in the Big 12 as of today. Big 10, middle of the pack, more than Rutgers, Michigan, Maryland, Purdue, Illinois, Minnesota, Indiana. And in the Pac-12, more than Arizona State, Washington, Arizona, Colorado, and Washington State. And then when you get to the SEC, still not last. More than Arkansas, Mississippi State, Missouri, Ole Miss, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt. UConn football in a power conference, which the Big East was more than holding their own. More than holding their own. They were winning power conference games. They were winning multiple BCS titles. They were putting players in the NFL. You saw this fan support. You saw the stadium. You saw the football facilities. If you give UConn football a place at a power conference table once again, in this day and age of NIL, and what the state of Connecticut is giving to the university and the athletic department and supporting them as a land grant state institution, there is no doubt, zero doubt that UConn will return to their success that they've had and ultimately exceed and ultimately reach what's possible. What's possible for UConn football? You might laugh, but what's possible for UConn football? Back in the 80s, people were saying the same thing about men's and women's basketball. Just think about that. Just think about that. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On UConn. As we continue here, we will keep talking football. We will keep talking men's basketball. We will keep talking women's basketball. On Friday, UConn softball kicks off the NCAA tournament down at Texas A&M. You can see that game on ESPN2 on Friday afternoon. But for now, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Locked On UConn. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On UConn so you get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On UConn ad-free plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to LockedOnUConn.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On College Basketball. I do have one more video before we go. I'm going to play it now. This is me as a member of the media with the football program at one of their practices.
Give you guys, you can pick one other member of the media over there to try it, and if they catch it, you guys won't have to run. Hey,
look, how you gonna catch it? How you gonna catch it?
Chest it in. Move up. Oh, no.
Fun times had a UConn football practice. Brings back a lot of memories there. A lot of good teams to cover. And I know there will be going forward as well. For now, this is Matt Schonvisky, Locked on UConn. Until next time, see ya!